At 06:32 on June 6, 1944, Lieutenant Commander John Harrington stood on the bridge of LST 325 as its bow doors opened 50 yards from Omaha Beach. Behind those doors sat 2,100 tons of cargo, 32 Sherman tanks, 18 half-tracks, 177 troops, medical supplies for 5,000 casualties, ammunition for 3 infantry battalions, all about to roll directly onto French sand through a hinged steel ramp that Navy brass had called structurally impossible 3 years earlier. The ramp lowered. The first Sherman moved forward. Its 33-ton weight transferred from ship to shore without stopping. 26 seconds later, the second tank followed. The entire unloading process took 41 minutes. No cranes, no smaller landing craft shuttling back and forth, no exposed troops wading through chest-deep water under machine gun fire. This moment represented the culmination of the most rejected naval design in American military history. A design that 3 separate admirals had dismissed as impractical, that Navy engineers had called a waste of steel, that shipyard executives had refused to bid on, until logistics analysts calculated what invading France would actually require. 2 million tons of supplies and equipment in the first 30 days. No existing vessel could deliver it. The man who refused to accept no for an answer wasn't an admiral. He was a 52-year-old British shipping executive named John Hughes-Hallett, who understood something the Navy had overlooked. The limitation wasn't ship capacity, it was the 20 feet of water between ship and shore. In November 1941, Hughes-Hallett attended a combined operations meeting in London, where planners discussed eventual European invasion scenarios. Every proposal assumed the same supply chain. Liberty ships would carry cargo across the Atlantic. Offshore, that cargo would transfer to smaller landing craft. Those craft would ferry loads to beaches in multiple trips. Standard doctrine, proven in small-scale raids, completely inadequate for sustained operations. Hughes-Hallett did the math. A typical landing craft could carry 36 tons per trip. Beach-to-ship transit time, including loading, averaged 47 minutes. Working 18 hours daily, one craft could deliver maybe 550 tons per week. To land 2 million tons in 30 days would require 1,215 landing craft running continuously. The Allies didn't have 1,215 landing craft. They had 287. He sketched his solution on the back of a supply requisition form. A 328-foot vessel with a flat bottom, shallow draft, and a massive bow door. The entire front section would open like a drawbridge. A hinged ramp would extend from ship to shore. Tanks could drive directly onto beaches. Trucks could offload without cranes. One ship could carry what 25 landing craft delivered in a week. He presented the concept to Vice Admiral Louis Mountbatten in December 1941. Mountbatten saw the logic. He forwarded it to the Admiralty's Bureau of Ships with his endorsement. The response arrived 3 weeks later. Rejected. Primary objection: structural integrity. Naval architects calculated that a 50-foot wide bow door would create a weak point, compromising the entire hull. Ocean stress would tear the ship apart. Opening the door in moderate seas would flood the tank deck within minutes. Hughes-Hallett revised the design. He added reinforced bulkheads, incorporated a pumping system capable of removing 4,000 gallons per minute, specified that bow doors would only open in protected waters near shore. He resubmitted in March 1942. Second rejection, new objection, shallow draft requirements. To beach successfully, the ship needed a draft under 4 feet when unloaded. That meant sacrificing stability. The design would capsize in Atlantic swells. He consulted civilian shipbuilders, found that oil tankers operated with similar draft-to-beam ratios without stability problems. proposed adding ballast tanks that could be flooded during ocean crossing, then pumped out near shore. Resubmitted in June 1942. Third rejection. This time the objection was economic. Steel was desperately needed for destroyers and Liberty ships. Building 200 experimental vessels with unproven designs would divert 340,000 tons of steel from critical programs. Too risky. The deadlock might have persisted indefinitely, except for one development. In July 1942, Allied planners began detailed preparations for Operation Overlord, the invasion of France. A logistics team led by Brigadier General Frank Ross analyzed supply requirements. Their conclusion was stark. Using conventional methods, the Allies could sustain approximately 90,000 troops in France for 60 days before supply chains collapsed. Intelligence estimated German strength at 850,000 troops in northern France. The math didn't work. Ross requested a meeting with Admiral Ernest King, Chief of Naval Operations. At that meeting on August 12, 1942, Ross presented projections. To establish a viable beachhead, Allied forces needed to land 41,000 tons of supplies daily for the first 30 days. Existing landing craft could deliver 8,200 tons daily if everything went perfectly. The deficit, 32,800 tons per day. 984,000 tons over 30 days. Unbridgeable. Ross placed Hughes-Hallett's rejected design proposals on King's desk, suggested the Navy reconsider. King reviewed the specifications for 18 minutes, then asked one question: how many could we build in 12 months? Shipyard consultants estimated 200 vessels if production started immediately. King issued the order that afternoon. Designation: Landing Ship, Tank, LST. Priority: Critical. Steel allocation: Approved. The 3 previous rejections were overridden by a single phrase in King's memo: without these vessels, invasion of Europe is impossible. The first LST keel was laid at Newport News Shipbuilding on October 27, 1942. The design incorporated every modification Hughes-Hallett had proposed. Hull length, 328 feet. Beam, 50 feet. Draft, 3 feet 8 inches forward, 9 feet 2 inches aft. Displacement, 4,080 tons loaded. The bow consisted of 2 massive doors, each 14 feet wide, hinged at the sides. Behind the doors, a steel ramp could extend 48 feet forward. 2,000 horsepower diesel engines provided 12-knot maximum speed. The revolutionary feature was the ballast system. 34 tanks distributed throughout the hull could hold 600 tons of seawater. During Atlantic crossings, these tanks were flooded, increasing draft and stability. Approaching shore, pumps could empty all tanks in 43 minutes, raising the bow and reducing draft to the critical 3-foot 8-inch threshold. This allowed the ship to beach in shallow water while maintaining stability in open ocean. Construction revealed immediate challenges. The bow door design required precision welding on massive curved steel plates. Initial attempts cracked under stress testing. Engineers developed a new welding technique using preheated rods and slower cooling rates. The solution added 8 days to each ship's construction time, but eliminated structural failures. The shallow draft created propeller problems. Standard Navy propellers cavitated in shallow water, losing thrust. Hughes-Hallett specified custom 4-bladed propellers with increased blade area. This reduced top speed from 14 knots to 12 knots, but maintained propulsion in 3 feet of water. Interior layout was equally innovative. The tank deck measured 250 feet long by 30 feet wide. Capacity: 20 Sherman tanks, or 40 trucks, or 2,100 tons of cargo in any configuration. Overhead, A smaller deck accommodated 177 troops. The stern featured 2 anti-aircraft guns and a 3-inch deck gun for fire support during landings. LST-1 launched on February 14, 1943. Initial sea trials identified a significant problem. The flat bottom and shallow draft created violent pitching in moderate seas. Crews reported 30-degree pitch angles that sent unsecured cargo sliding. Engineers added longitudinal baffles to the tank deck, creating channels that prevented cargo shift. They installed shock-absorbing cargo tie-downs rated to 40 tons per connection point. These modifications didn't eliminate pitching, but made it manageable. By December 1943, 187 LSTs had been completed. The Navy faced a final test: operational validation. 22 LSTs participated in the invasion of Sicily in July 1943. They beached successfully, unloaded in an average of 39 minutes per vessel. 0 structural failures, 0 capsizes. The design worked. Production accelerated. 18 shipyards across America began building LSTs. Newport News, Evansville, Seneca, Jeffersonville. Each yard developed specialized techniques. Welders worked 12-hour shifts. Steel flowed directly from mills to shipyards. Assembly time dropped from 47 days per vessel to 28 days. By June 1944, 1,052 LSTs had been built. The rejected design had become America's most produced large naval vessel. The Normandy invasion required 237 LSTs. They carried the initial assault wave. LST-325 beached at Omaha Beach at 06:32, as planned. LST-338 landed at Utah Beach at 06:47. LST-376 delivered directly to Gold Beach at 07:19. Each ship drove onto shore, opened bow doors, extended ramps, and began unloading. Tanks rolled off in continuous streams. Trucks followed immediately. Medical supplies transferred in minutes rather than hours. The speed advantage was decisive. Conventional landing craft required multiple trips. Each trip exposed crews to artillery fire. Each delay allowed German reinforcements to arrive. The LSTs made one trip, delivered massive cargo in one assault, got off the beach within an hour. Their flat bottoms took hits but rarely sank. Their shallow draft allowed retreat at high tide. Their volume kept supplies flowing during the critical first 72 hours when the invasion could have collapsed. By D-Day +30, LSTs had landed 1.87 million tons of supplies and equipment in France. General Dwight Eisenhower stated in his August 1944 report, "Without the LST, Operation Overlord would have failed. No other vessel could have sustained the invasion force during the establishment phase." The design that 3 admirals rejected had delivered 94% of Normandy's supply requirements. Hughes-Hallett's napkin sketch had become the backbone of the largest amphibious operation in history. The 2 million tons everyone said was impossible had been delivered in 31 days. Not through better tactics or more troops, through a hinged steel ramp that nobody wanted to build, until mathematics proved there was no alternative. LSTs continued operation throughout the Pacific Campaign. Iwo Jima, Okinawa, Philippines. Each invasion required the same capability: massive cargo delivered directly onto hostile shores without port facilities. Post-war, many LSTs were sold to commercial operators. Several remain in service today as ferries in Southeast Asia, their bow ramps still functional 80 years after rejection turned to acceptance. The lesson wasn't about ship design, it was about what rejection protects. Naval architects rejected the LST to prevent structural failure. They were protecting institutional knowledge about hull integrity. Shipyard executives rejected it to protect steel resources for proven designs. Admirals rejected it to protect against waste. All three rejections were logical, defensible, grounded in legitimate concerns. What changed wasn't the design. What changed was the context. When invasion became real rather than theoretical, the cost of rejection exceeded the risk of acceptance. Sometimes rejection persists until necessity overrides caution, until the alternative to trying becomes worse than the possibility of failing. The LST succeeded not because skeptics were wrong about the risks, but because planners proved the risks were worth accepting. Lieutenant Commander Harrington watched LST 325's ramp retract at 0713 on June 6th. Behind him, 32 Sherman tanks were already moving inland. The ship backed into deeper water, turned and headed for England to load another 2,100 tons. It would make 3 more round trips in the next 11 days. Each trip validated what rejection had almost prevented, that sometimes the most important innovations are the ones nobody wants until everyone needs them.